As queer and trans folks, we know we experience some degree of social marginalization.
because of our sexual or romantic orientation.
and/or our gender identity.
However, that doesn't mean we shouldn't still be thinking about the power and privilege we may or may not.
Hold in our relationships.
In this video, we will identify and break down the influence of
Power,
Privilege
Cisnormativity,
heteronormativity,
and challenge societal norms around what healthy relationships must look like.
privilege, and power are systematic,
meaning that they exist structurally in our society's institutions.
but they also exist interpersonally in our relationships.
Sometimes in relationships, there is an imbalance of privilege.
Which can create challenges.
privilege is interconnected with power in our society.
Those who have privilege can create or maintain societal norms.
Even in the 2SLGBTQIA+ community, there are unrealistic standards of beauty and expression imposed,
That originate from white supremacy,
Fatphobia, ableism.
and more.
A lot of us feel pressure and expectation to align with these standards just to feel validated in our queer and trans identities.
people who are thin, white, or able-bodied,
Are going to experience privilege over people who are fat, non-white, or disabled.
Because they can attain these standards.
You may be white, thin, and able-bodied dating someone who does not experience the same privileges as you.
They may struggle more with self-expression, body neutrality, self-acceptance, and might feel more pressure to conform.
Support and encourage your partner if you notice they struggle with these.
be conscious of how you speak about people's bodies, the way they dress, and how they present.
Be aware of and unpack any biases you have that influence what you think is attractive and fashionable.
Privilege can be fluid. It can change as you move through life.
If you were raised and socialized as a gender that you aren't,
You may have experienced oppression or privilege specific to that gender.
Later in life, you may lose that privilege and gain others.
be aware and consider the way your partner's experiences might differ from yours.
Consider if they may be more vulnerable to violence or more likely to be targeted for harassment.
Ask what you can do to support your partner.
Privilege is contextual.
Intersectional identities a person holds,
Can give them an advantage or disadvantage based on how they are perceived.
If you're a non-white person who grew up in a predominantly white area, you might have faced racism and oppression as a racial minority.
even though you've experienced this type of oppression,
You may still experience relative privilege over your partner.
While this doesn't dismiss your experiences, it does mean you should be showing up for your partner with this privilege in mind.
Acknowledging and navigating power and privilege in your relationships
Can help us strengthen them and avoid unintended harm.
But it can also be hard work.
have open conversations about needs and barriers.
Never make assumptions about your partner's feelings, opinions, abilities, or constraints.
Be conscious of the space you're taking up.
Listen and validate their experiences of oppression.
apologize when harm is caused,
And commit yourself to doing better.
We've established that you are the only one who can decide what is best for you and your relationship.
But that doesn't necessarily make it easy.
It can be hard exploring relationships in a heteronormative and cisnormative world.
Everywhere we look, we see institutions, structures, media, and people stigmatizing the ways we identify and want to live.
Heteronormative and cisnormative influences
Create spoken and unspoken rules and norms.
Of what a respectable relationship should look like.
Here are some things to remember as you're navigating this.
You do not need to replicate heterosexual dynamics in your queer relationships.
Look at the ways you can unpack and reject gender roles and stereotypes when they don't serve you in your relationships.
Reflect on what you want out of a relationship.
Regardless of what you witness from other people's relationships.
Think about what would make you happy and seek that out.
Be conscious of the media you engage with. Sometimes the messaging we absorb about relationships comes from the TV, movies, and books we consume.
Look for content that breaks away from conventions if you are feeling suffocated by them.
Relationships should be built to suit our needs, not the other way around.
even though it can be challenging to resist the pressure.
From oppressive systems,
To conform to these rules and norms,
Honoring and respecting our values when framing our relationships,
helps us build healthier,
more satisfying,
more fulfilling relationships.
Where we feel comfortable and safe.
in our next video,
We will further break down the myths and falsehoods
caused by society,
Specifically as they pertain to 2SLGBTQIA+ sexual health.
and safer sex availability and practices.